Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday morning to you all. Hope you guys are getting up and feeling well out there this morning and having a great start to your day, a great week out there as we're getting a little bit closer to that weekend that we all enjoy. But today is going to be a very, very active weather day today, guys. The word of the day is dynamic, and the weather is going to be very dynamic, meaning certain areas might see strong storms this afternoon and then turn around, and by the time we get into tonight, into tomorrow morning, it's snowing in those same areas. So some pretty crazy weather. And the thing is, we mentioned in last night's video that it seems like this system was kind of uptrending over the last 24 to 48 hours as far as those dynamics and just an increased severe weather threat, more snow involved with the system, and it's done nothing but increase overnight, especially the severe weather threat is now we have a level 3 out of 5, an enhanced risk for severe storms across the south. So this is going to get a little serious today for a period of time. So we need to figure this out and break it down. We'll talk about who's going to see what's going on right now, because right now it's pretty active. There was a town or community in western Kentucky a little bit earlier this morning that had some crazy hailstorm. I saw a video, and the meteorologist out of that area mentioned, it's wild. We have seen more hail than snow this year, and it seemed like for that individual area, they certainly have. So heavy snow falling in portions of Missouri and eastern Kansas this morning. We'll talk about that. Wild little feature on radar with this low pressure. So we're going to figure it all out for you guys. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. It helps get these videos out there in the algorithm on YouTube, and I really appreciate that. And of course, more importantly than all, if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over, and then others will do so too. I promise you they will. And I know a lot of people have storm anxiety, so certainly praying for everybody who's definitely just worrying a little extra today because of the storm. So let's get rolling this morning. Take a look at the satellite and what's going on. You can see the spin. Our system is really cranking up this morning. The weather is becoming much more active. It already is. You already got storms ongoing in areas of the Ohio Valley and Kentucky, things like that. And this little feature, this backside feature right here, this is our backside snow. Some thunder snow is looking like is falling in certain areas of Missouri, and we'll talk about that. And here comes our line of storms in the deep south that is beginning to develop as I speak right now. And this is going to be an intense line of storms. Really, the enhanced risk was issued today because an increased potential for damaging winds. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But the tornado threat also increased, a pretty wide 5% risk. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. We'll talk about that here in a second. Watches and warnings. We'll try to upgrade this, update this. Always upgrade, update, always mixing them up here. But you see these pinkish colors right here, more of a dull pink. That is severe thunderstorm watches. This more vibrant pink, if you will, that is winter storm warnings on the spine of the southern Appalachian Mountains in Tennessee and North Carolina. And then winter weather advisories extend all the way up into the higher elevations of northern West Virginia. You got some winter weather advisories up here in northeast Ohio and then Erie, Pennsylvania. And then ongoing winter weather advisories for areas of Kansas. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if something gets issued in Missouri over the next hour or two, but for now, they're not pulling the trigger on that. Winter weather advisories up here for the northern sections of the Northeast and New England, and winter storm warnings up for the far northern 2 counties of Maine. You got wind advisories up. It's going to be very windy. So, Storm Prediction Center outlook today. Enhanced risk now issued from Birmingham to Atlanta down to Columbus and all the communities in between. And this extends pretty far northeast and east of Atlanta too. So almost gets into a small portion of South Carolina. You got a slight risk now all the way up to Nashville. All the way down to Montgomery, Alabama. In fact, this enhanced risk might be over Montgomery. It's hard to tell. But Columbia to Charlotte, just a marginal risk, but this could extend. Not the enhanced risk, but I do think the slight risk could extend a little further east. We'll watch that. But if you're wondering what's driving an enhanced risk today, it's really the wind threat. There's now a 30% risk of damaging winds to occur within 25 miles on any given location in this red area. That is winds pushing 55 to 60 miles per hour, 50 knots or higher. So listen, I mean, the main story with this today is a damaging line of storms is going to move through. Not everybody's going to see damage, but some people will, and some people can. So there is a tornado threat today. It has increased with the thermodynamics much more supportive for tornadic activity in this huge 5% risk. There's a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. In this big brown area right here you see, that is the 5% risk. This includes a lot of higher populated area. Obviously, your thoughts and mine immediately go to Atlanta. and they are right in the crosshairs of some nasty weather today. There will be a hail threat, especially at the beginning of this storm. Cooler air aloft is kind of undercutting or overcutting the atmosphere, if you will, and that's why you have such a hail threat that was ongoing earlier this morning. It probably still is ongoing in areas of Kentucky and things like that, as cooler air aloft begins to move through, but at the surface it's still supportive thermodynamic wise for severe weather. But anyways, there will be a hail threat initially this morning, but I think the hail threat will decrease as we get a little bit later into this evening. But we'll see how this happens here. Let's talk about the Southeast, and I'm going to give you a more broad look at what's going on with the Southeast today. Then we'll zone into a couple areas. Right now, this morning, we have some snow ongoing in areas of Missouri. We'll go on and look at that. I was going to wait till we looked at the south central or north central area. But Kansas City right here, snow is being reported where it shows rain. And, this community, I think that's Jefferson City, Missouri. So chances are, even though there's no reports right into here, well southeast of Kansas City near Clinton, Missouri, it is probably snowing like crazy. You see these lightning bolts, guys? This is probably where there's thunder snow or thunder sleet falling. So that tells you how dynamic this system is. It picked up on this last night. I was showing you that there was going to be a pretty intense band, but a pretty small band of winter weather. So this could coat the ground very quickly. It's not like this is a major winter storm. In fact, there's not even any winter weather advisories in this area. But if you're in Springfield, Missouri, this band could, eventually make its way into this area. Joplin, Missouri, this band of snow could potentially make its way into your area, but it's not going to last long, but could be intense while it's going on. Low pressure cutting across areas of the Ohio Valley, northern Kentucky this morning. And then as it does, we'll watch this little band of snow begin to just kind of diminish. It'll kind of go away. But look at these lines of storms beginning to develop from southern Mississippi all the way up into eastern Kentucky and Tennessee. These will be quite intense. And these storms behind it, the form, they will have a hail threat because cooler air aloft is moving through. And normally when you have cooler air aloft, cold core storms, if you will, the hail threat increases. So watch out for some storms in western Tennessee a little bit later this afternoon that could produce a little bit of hail. But as far as like the big time severe weather threat with this, it'll probably decrease, but the hail threat might increase. We'll watch these little clusters of storms right here. But this is what we watch for today. Along this line of storms, there will be a damaging wind threat as we're getting into later this afternoon. I'm talking about 3-4 p.m. But watch these little clusters of storms that develop out ahead of this main line. These will be the storms that will take the most advantage of the atmospheric players at bay out here. The kinematics, thermodynamics, overlapping one another, creating a tornado threat. So we'll watch these little cells ahead of this main line. But this main line will be the big damaging wind producer, and I think this will move through areas of Birmingham, for example, probably sometime early to mid-afternoon, probably more so the middle to later afternoon for Atlanta, and then this will be knocking on the doorstep of all the southern Appalachian Mountains sometime mid to later afternoon. Then as we get into this evening, these storms could get quite intense for the upstate of South Carolina, even the foothills of North Carolina. So please be careful, and these will kind of move through the state, move through Columbia probably sometime around 9 or 10 p.m. Same thing with Charlotte, Raleigh, a little couple hours later, and then they'll work their way through, and snow starts moving in the backside of this moisture. We'll zone in on each area this morning. You already have severe weather, some strong storms ongoing this morning across the south. This will continue, and as we're getting into the 9-10 a.m. time frame, the line of storms begins to get its act together. So Huntsville, Alabama, Nashville, Tennessee, if you're going to see any storm activity this morning, it'll probably be about mid-morning, but this continues and really begins to intensify right over northern Alabama, southern Tennessee, and then southern areas of Mississippi. This continues, and then Birmingham being right into here, this begins to hit Birmingham. And listen, the damaging wind threat's the highest, but you could have some kinks in this line of storms, meaning some rotation in this line of storms that can definitely get going. And what worries me is, yes, if this was more of just a consolidated chunk of line of storms, the damaging wind threat will be higher, but this looks kind of kinked up, if you will. It looks kind of broken up, which tells me that there could be some discrete supercells along this line of storms that's not, probably the better word is probably semi-discrete. So we got to watch for some spins with the storms a little bit later, probably just after lunchtime, even in southern Mississippi. Watch out down to New Orleans. Watch out a little bit later this morning into the early afternoon hours, but the threat will move through and move out very quickly. But we'll keep this going. Watch out on Montgomery, Alabama. This will move through probably mid to later afternoon. Then Atlanta begins to knock on the door. But then there'll be additional line that could work in behind this first line that could get going. Hell threat with this, what I think will be a little bit higher, not super high, but just higher than this threat right here, with cooler air aloft beginning to move in behind this line of storms. And then this will blast through Atlanta, maybe just before rush hour, right, when everybody's heading home from work. But we watch for these prefrontal storms. We'll move a little bit further east, and here it goes, these storms moving through. I mean, what's wild is Gatlinburg, Knoxville, Asheville, Boone could see a line of storms, maybe a rumble of thunder, flashes of lightning, and then turn around, and under 8 to 12 hours later, it's snowing. Maybe even under that, maybe under like 6 hours later, it's snowing. But this is what I worry here, down here in central Georgia, getting into South Carolina. Watch out for any prefrontal storms, well, pre-line storms, if you will. I'm saying prefrontal, but this line of storms, anything that develops ahead of this will have a maximized potential to see a tornado threat. I'm not saying maximized as in you're definitely going to have a tornado or it's a very, very high threat, but it will have the highest chance in this threat altogether. But as we're getting into about 5 to 6 p.m., this line of storms begins to blast through Asheville, Greenville, Spartanburg area, Gainesville, Georgia, starts to move through Newberry to Columbia to Charlotte, Gastonia, Augusta, as we're getting into maybe closer to dinner time. Really rocky evening, probably for most of the Carolinas and southeast Georgia. This line of storms continues to move through and really begins to weaken. But look, this line of storm hasn't even cleared the Carolinas or the eastern U.S., and it's already starting to snow in the mountains of North Carolina and Virginia. Basically, not Virginia, well, and Virginia probably, West Virginia, probably the Smokies. It's already snowing in the Smokies, Smoky Mountains. Before this main storm has already pulled through, sometime around just after midnight, the snow will probably begin to get cranked up, and then look at the snow behind it that really start to filter in. There's some things we're going to talk about tonight that are tricky. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but there is some signs that maybe a coastal low throws enough moisture back here for Saturday morning that we got to watch the eastern areas of North Carolina, maybe Virginia. I don't want to talk too much on that. I want to get a whole day's worth of model runs today and see what it looks like. But some of these showers, snow showers, are really starting to show the break containment here. And we'll get a better look at this. But for you folks in Kentucky, you're going to be dealing with strong storms all day. Some will be severe, even into West Virginia. You guys could see hear a rumble of thunder, flashes of lightning today. They will continue throughout the midday time frame. This is around midday. You got storms still ongoing in central Kentucky, getting into eastern Kentucky. Multiple lines of storms, and there will be a chance for an isolated spin up as far north as Kentucky. Guys, do not be surprised if you guys get a tornado warning or two up here. I would not be surprised at all. But as soon as this main area moves through, look what follows in behind it. Immediately, any leftover moisture begins to switch to snow between probably 2 to 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. And you got snow showers as far south as Nashville down to the Cumberland Plateau. Snowing in the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee. And I mean, you keep this going. Look at some of these rain showers turning into snow showers from northern Alabama. And if I was to keep this going, look how some of this moisture begins to break containment. You don't see this often. Southeast and east of the mountains, this starts to get into South Carolina. Now, this shows rain. But listen, I will not rule out, if anything breaks loose of the mountains for tomorrow, and we'll talk about this more tonight, some grapple falling. Meaning that there's a lot of cold air aloft, and sometimes you can get some ice that falls from the sky, even if temperatures are in the mid-40s, which could be the case throughout the Carolinas Friday. But, I mean, look at these snow showers breaking containment. Tennessee, obviously, we know there's going to be many areas of snow in Tennessee, especially Kentucky, but this is getting into tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. I don't want to talk too much on that. But the Northeast today, you're dealing with a little bit of snow activity this morning. This will continue to make its way through areas of southern New England and just New England and Northeast in general. But it might could drop a couple inches of snow at most. But immediately trailing this moisture is a big blob of rain. And warm air advection, just due to the fact that this low pressure is blasting right through the Northeast. So I'll stop it right here. This is around 6 p.m. later today, this afternoon and evening. This is all rain, except if you live 4,000 or 5,000 feet up in the air, which isn't many areas in New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire. There is some higher mountains up here, just like there is in the southern Appalachian Mountains. But you got to live pretty far up for this to maintain as snow or ice. But anyways, A lot of rain for the Northeast today, but one thing you watch is this backside moisture, and Ohio is really the state I'm watching, and we're about to zoom in on that here in a second. But as far north as Washington, D.C., sometime later this evening, could see a round of storms. It's certainly possible, but just an all-out washout for southern New England, especially as we get into later this evening. This is all snow for a period for, I would say, 80% of Maine, but it works basically south to north as far as that rain snow line, and eventually a lot of folks just turn to a heavy rain, but it could be a solid front end thumping of heavy wet snow for areas of Maine for sure. But this low pressure plowing right through the Northeast, and immediately behind it, the rain changes to snow as enough cold air filters in. So by the time it's probably raining in most of New York State, by the time you go to bed, it could be snowing, and snowing pretty heavy by the time you wake up tomorrow morning. Could be the case. Let's zone in on Ohio. So storms, showers, and storms will make their way through. And then as we get into the afternoon hours, I'm talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you start to see the leftover moisture potentially change to snow. And there could be a period of snow for central to northern Ohio. Really, really expecting this to happen in northeast Ohio. But rain already changing to snow. Way later, I'm talking about well after midnight, this might occur. So by the time you go to sleep tonight, honestly, unless you're a night owl, this will probably still just be a cold rain unless you live near Cleveland and northeast Ohio. But if you stay up late across Ohio, there could be numerous snow showers flying around and maybe a heavier burst of snow. And then as we're making our way into Friday morning, could be waking up to a snowy Friday morning across areas of western Pennsylvania, like Pittsburgh, things like that, and numerous snow showers probably flying around tomorrow morning in Ohio with a lake-enhanced kind of north to south streamers off Lake Erie. So I think Cleveland's going to pick up at minimum a few inches of snow. I really do think. Rainfall today, just between now and the next 24 hours, guys, just between now and the next 24 hours. Certainly expect several inches of rain in certain areas. Well, not several, but a few inches of rain definitely expected in areas of Maine, but a lot of this will fall snow in the beginning of this event. But just it's going to be a washed out across the Northeast today. Some areas will just see a quarter inch of rain. Some areas will see 2 inches of rain. Some areas will see a few inches of snow, depending on where you live. But as far as the snowfall between now and the next 24 hours, it's 24 hours. Central and northern Maine will pick up several inches of snow. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody tries to sneak in a foot of snow, where you get hit hard by that frontogenesis of just that front end thump of snow for sure. But the higher elevations of Vermont and New Hampshire will certainly see some appreciable snow. But if you live lower in elevation, it's going to be a stout cutoff. But like I said, with this feature, we already talked about it in Missouri this morning. This will move off, and I think most of the south central U.S. will be pretty quiet today. There's not really a whole lot to talk on the south central U.S. Some cooler air kind of moves in, but in general, not expecting a super active day out here. It really ain't. This system kind of whiffed on y'all, really missed y'all. So a pretty quiet day across the south central U.S. My folks up here in the north central U.S., besides the Ohio Valley, really not a lot going on until you get into later this evening, and then some in lake enhanced off Lake Michigan and Lake Superior will start getting kicked off here. I think some snow showers will be flying around and some streamers in Illinois a little bit later this evening into the overnight hours, and then I think in northern Indiana you could see a little bit of lake enhanced snow off Lake Michigan, and definitely a solid north to south streamer flowing directly down Lake Michigan will definitely be happening probably. But, you might wake up to some snow showers around Chicago for sure tomorrow morning. But other than that, not a lot of weather going on out there. Kind of a weird day temperature-wise. It's going to be hard to know your high temperature just because you have a moving air mass. So you're waking up some very moist and warm air across a lot of the south. And I think high temperatures will spike well into the 70s, maybe even 80-degree reading in areas of the deep south like southern Alabama and Georgia. Definitely some 80-degree readings today in Florida. But much colder compared to yesterday across Texas and the south central U.S. Highs in the 50s and 40s. Maybe even just 30s in this area right here in the country, but very warm ahead of this system. For example, if you're in Nashville, the valleys of Tennessee, it's going to get into the 60s today, and West Virginia, you're going to go from the 50s and 60s to tomorrow. It's going to be in the 30s and snowing. So 30-degree swing, pretty wild day. So Just wild weather. So very, very briefly, we'll mention this, and we'll talk about this tonight if it warrants us talking about it, because if it doesn't, then I'm not going to bring it up. But as the system flies through, right, the latest GFS and even the HRRR model, you see the backside snow ripping in the mountains. The latest GFS has the idea of a low pressure developing and then throwing moisture back into North Carolina, and this spells a little bit of snow for eastern North Carolina for Saturday morning. We need to talk about this if this becomes a thing, and we'll talk about it tonight a little bit. But another thing I'm watching is just this area of moisture breaking containment. You see this 540 line? This tells me that there's not enough cold air at the surface down here in like South Carolina for this to be snow, but there is enough cold air aloft. You click a sounding right around Columbia, and there's a lot of cold air aloft. So, it's raining in the low 40s, dew points in the upper 30s, but notice how the temperature aloft drops like a rock. So, I want to watch areas of South Carolina tomorrow, especially tomorrow afternoon, as some of this moisture breaks containment, and you could have a little bit of sleet, some grapple falling from the sky. I want to watch this. I definitely do. My words are getting twisted up as I'm working through here in time. So, the latest long-range HRRR model. Let me slow down so I can wrap up this video. Shows the same kind of scenario. A lot of moisture breaking containment off this flow from the northwest. And what happens here is a low pressure tries to pop off, and look at it throwing moisture back into North Carolina. Cold enough for snow with a lot of cold air aloft in this area. So it's a scenario we need to watch. There's two things. The little streamers going down to South Carolina. Could be enough cold air aloft to, bring some sleet. And this little coastal low trying to develop that was showing up a few days ago and then went away. And that's all because you see this is 500 millibar, basically energy at this point. And we back this up. I would say, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. You back this up 4 runs, and you see how this tilt is going like this. These lines are kind of bowing out like this. That's what we call a positive tilt. When it goes like this, it becomes neutrally tilted, which means it's a strengthening storm. When it goes like that, it's negatively tilted, which means it's a storm that's really, really starting to strengthen. And watch as I go up to the current run. Watch how these lines that are kind of bowing out like this kind of go more like this. Bang, 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 bang. You see this one line right here? See how it's going more like that? That's the reason why you are now seeing a little bit of moisture getting tossed back, because this is a secondary low trying to develop and get going, and it's trying to close off. Has not closed off. It eventually closes off right off the coast of North Carolina, but it's a little too late to deliver some kind of freak surprise snow event for areas of the eastern U.S. So we'll watch this. It's a tricky thing showing up here. A lot of little wild card scenarios, guys. That's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and have yourselves a safe but awesome Thursday.